Look at almost any social media feed today, and you will find an endless stream of synthetic media, disjointed images, surreal video clips, and low-effort content flooding our timelines. There is a specific financial mechanism driving this volume. Operators, often running international click farms, generate thousands of images daily to target distinct American demographics, harvesting their emotional engagement for ad revenue. This bar chart illustrates the perception problem this volume creates. In a National Library of Medicine study, participants were shown identical images. When an image is labeled as AI-generated, its perceived artistic value drops significantly. Our brains automatically equate the speed of a machine's output with an absence of human effort. Sociologists have a framework for this. Developed in the 1980s to describe household and back-end work, it is called invisible labor. Invisible labor is the essential planning, organizing, and maintenance that makes a finding product possible, but goes entirely uncompensated and unvalued because the audience never sees it happen. Assuming all artificial intelligence requires zero effort conflates the act of raw generation with the process of finished production. Serious AI storytelling relies heavily on labor that remains out of frame. The first layer of this unseen process occurs before a single pixel is rendered. It is the cognitive labor of prompt engineering. There is no button that produces a cohesive, intentional masterpiece. Reaching a specific visual goal requires hundreds of failed generations, testing, and error correction. Large language models rely on in-context learning, meaning they temporarily adapt to the structure of a prompt. A creator has to develop a highly precise, style-specific vocabulary to steer the output effectively. This requires intense human-in-the-loop interaction. To output something culturally resonant, a human must codify specific emotional responses and contexts into the system. Look at projects like Bina 48, a social robot whose very identity is constructed from years of meticulously recorded human conversations. Writing a prompt is an iterative act of translation. It is the cognitive heavy lifting required to force a statistical pattern-matching system to execute a specific human vision. The second hidden layer happens immediately after generation, curation and fact-checking. Generative systems do not possess a physical reality to reference. They synthesize statistical patterns. Because that indexical bond to the real world is broken, the models regularly hallucinate false information. This diagram outlines the vetting process. Creators must manually verify the output by breaking a single generated sentence into individual clauses, connecting each piece to independent verification nodes using lateral reading and reverse image searches. The machine has no concept of truth or epics. That entire burden rests solely on the person sitting at the keyboard. The software provides the raw material. The human operator curates it, verifies its accuracy, and takes ownership of what is published. The third layer brings us to post-production, a process mirroring the traditional film industry pipeline. For a century, film editing has been known as the invisible art. A successful edit pulls the audience into the story so seamlessly they never notice the cuts. An AI-generated image or video clip is not a finished movie. It is the exact equivalent of raw dailies delivered from a film set. Taking that raw output to a finished state requires a massive array of manual tasks. Creators must check structural integrity, match color grades, build the sound design from scratch, and pace the edits. Generative AI excels at divergent thinking, rapidly producing concepts in the early stages of a project. It cannot execute the convergent thinking necessary to finalize a physical, permanent artifact. The storytelling still happens on the timeline. AI tools do not replace this finishing labor. They simply extend the invisible post-production phase. Laziness is a choice made by the operator. It is not a feature coded into the software. Viewers scrolling on a phone are completely isolated from that production pipeline. They only interact with the final artifact on their screen. When an audience knows a machine is involved, our brains use a cognitive shortcut, drawing a straight line from the AI tool to the final video. This categorizes months of iteration and curation as instantaneous machine work, erasing human effort. Because this intensive work happens entirely behind a monitor, creators cannot assume the public will grant them automatic trust. To earn that trust, serious practitioners have to actively show their work. They must make their standards, their guardrails, and their human intent visible to the audience. Separating thoughtful storytelling from automated slop requires radical transparency. Creators have to establish a new standard of proof.